The last time we spoke to you was pre-pandemic. How has the pandemic impacted the bank?
Our COVID-19 crisis recovery facility has provided $6.6 billion approved by it already. There are $3 billion being prepared. So the lending program has increased. So that's the very important feature we did not expect. On the other hand, because of the difficulty of preparing projects on the ground, remote work can do something but cannot do as much as you would like to see. We need boots on the ground. Then we see probably the slowdown in the mainstream business of physical infrastructure development.
How much distress are you seeing in the loans that you've made?
We work with very competent project sponsors and partners. What worries me, what worries our bank, is the deterioration in the economic situations of some of our members, and they are downgraded, some of them. Maybe more will be coming. That means, or that will be translated into increased impairment charges to our net income.
Is it logical then to assume increased defaults as well, or renegotiations of terms?
We don't do that. As the preferred credit status, enjoy the preferred credit status. So far, and as you see, the creditor, the debtors normally would honor their debt service to the multilateral institutions like the World Bank, like AIIB, like all of us, because we are the net capital providers to these countries at a time when they do need the financial resources. Recently, we have got a confirmation of the rating companies. They are very pleased with the way we manage the bank.
What do you expect the total value of loans and projects to be by the end of the year?
We now, the total accumulated lending over the last 4 years and a half is over $20 billion already. But you see, I always highlight the quality. Quality is the priority. Quantity is important because if you don't have the critical mass, you will have no impact. We have $13 billion for COVID-19 recovery crisis. But you see, I do not think we need to increase the crisis recovery facility anymore. I want to shift quickly back to mainstream business. But there's one important point I like to tell you. I would take social infrastructure, which means health sector, as one of the areas in which we can invest.
You've been very clear you will not sign off on any funding for coal-related projects. I just want to push you on this. The Bank Information Center, which is an NGO in Washington, has said that for every dollar spent on renewables by the AIIB, almost twice that has been spent on fossil fuels. Do you need to go further? Will you stop, for example, funding fossil fuel projects across the board?
We will not finance coal-firing power plants, as I said, nor any projects which are functionally related to coal. We focus our limited financial resources on renewables. This is what we need to do. But there are lots of things beyond our control. This, in my view, should be dealt with by the borrowers, by the financial institutions in the private sector, by the international community to handle together. The development bank like ours has limited resources to develop renewables. And we have no right to tell any of our client members, you should not do this, you shouldn't do that. This is not possible.
The European Investment Bank, the AIIB, they have ruled out funding for fossil fuel linked projects. You could follow their lead.
You should allow the Asian countries certain period for them to phase out entirely fossil fuel. European countries are developed countries. They are way ahead of the Asian developing countries in terms of finance, technology, and capacity. This is something which is exactly deficient in many of the developing countries in Asia. So what we need to do is to push forward the transition, accelerate the process as much as possible.
There was a report in Project Syndicate by an academic from the University of Lisbon and a development agency in Denmark, and they said that the AIIB's lack of transparency threatens to make a bad situation worse when it comes to the climate crisis, when it comes to civic society. What is your answer to that?
I don't think people should complain about the lack of transparency of our institution. I hold dialogues with the shareholders, stakeholders, and the community. So I think that if they look at the way we publicize all the information, they should feel comfortable.
You've often talked about the fact that the bank is apolitical. Is it becoming more difficult to be apolitical in the current environment?
When you say interference, I would say you should not define this as something completely negative, because people broadly refer to any suggestions, ideas from the government as interference. I don't look at it that way. We should remain humble. We should be willing to listen to the ideas, suggestions of the shareholders.
Given your previous role as Vice Finance Minister here in China on China's economy, the economy is clearly recovering. How sustainable is it, do you think, and what are the key risks?
I think to control the local government's debt, because you see, the local governments, some of them have accumulated debt over the years for their development, and developed areas, coastal developed areas, I think would have little difficulty, if any, to deal with that. But maybe hinterland provinces, poor areas, they need more support. So Chinese government is paying a lot of attention to the debt sustainability in some of these areas. And I think if China takes care of this, no problem.
Whenever we talk to you, you talk about the need, when we discuss the tensions between the US and China, you talk about the need for dialogue. Do you think there's a chance after the election that a window, however small, might open up for some kind of partial reset of this relationship?
In spite of some rhetorics, trumped by some of these people, I think inwardly they believe the only solution is dialogue, mutual understanding. As a Chinese, and as one who's been dealing with American colleagues for so many years, I would say I'm confident. I believe eventually some people who got them excited would calm down and sit down to talk.
So there is a potential possibly for some kind of reset in the relationship.
I'm even more positive than that. There must be candid, frank, and constructive dialogues between the two sides.